Alright guys, so it's pretty late. Of course, I'm not gonna lie, I know I always end up doing these super late at night, but I try to upload them at a good time for you guys to check them out. But hope you guys are well, hope you guys have been learning, hope you guys have been reading, staying rooted in the word, of course, not getting, you know what I'm saying, not moving too fast to kind of forget, you know, what's kind of keeping you going, you know what I'm saying? So tonight we're in 2 Timothy. Paul is writing. So Paul is my guy, bro. The more I read, the more I learn how much Paul has gone through. The letters he writes are super awesome. They're super great for us to understand. He addresses it, he calls it out, he lets people know where they are and where they should be. He is on a mission, you know what I'm saying? Today we're in 2 Timothy 4, verse 16, and I'll just read. It says, "At my first defense, no one came to my support, but everyone deserted me. May it not be held against them. But the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed and all the Gentiles might hear. And I was delivered from the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. To him be glory forever and ever. Amen." So he is writing this message to Timothy, right? Giving Timothy some encouragement, basically telling him to stay faithful to his ministry. And through this, he's reflecting on his own life. So he's reflecting on how people have treated him. And I was reading through it because I was trying to understand what he really meant by people deserting him. So verse 10, it says, "Do your best to come to me quickly." Like, so he's expecting people to come to him while he's trying to preach the gospel, right? And he says, "For Demas, because he loved the world, he has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica." Basically, Demas was a friend of Paul, helping him share the gospel. Think about if you're going to like present a project, right? And you have somebody who's supposed to show up for you and they were helping you throughout this project, and now it's time to present and now they're not there. So that's what Paul is kind of breaking down to us in verse 10. And then if you go down a little more, because I was a little confused because I was like, all right, this is very simple. And basically he goes through a list from verse 10 to 14. He goes through everybody who has just betrayed him, everybody who was not there with him. Verse 11, he says, "Only Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you because he is helpful to me in my ministry." And then he says, "I sent someone elsewhere." He says, "When you come, bring the cloak that I left." Basically, he's just explaining to us like, everybody who was supposed to be here, or everybody who was here originally is not here. You know what I'm saying? And he's just like talking to Timothy. He's like, yo man, like don't give up, right? Don't stop. Don't quit because you don't have the support that you expected. But the thing that stood out to me in verse 16, when he was saying that no one came to his support, after he said everyone deserted me, he said, "May it not be held against it." And I thought this was like a big character moment, because it was like, even though these people have done me wrong, even though these people aren't here for me, or they're doing whatever, you know, their heart desires, I'm not going to hold it against them, right? He may not know what they're doing. He may not know why they're doing it. He may not understand all of the principles behind what they're doing, but he understands that I'm not going to be bitter for what they did. I'm not going to despise them for what they did. I may be a little upset, I may be a little frustrated, but I'm not going to let them not being here stop me from what God has called me to, you know? So I took this and I wanted to write some notes, because I feel like a lot of times we end up feeling alone, you know? I end up lifting pretty late and I feel a little alone, but I like the peace that comes from it. So I play a lot of quiet music, a lot of music without words, because I like to hear myself think. I like to know how I'm feeling those late nights, you know what I'm saying? So I wrote a couple notes because I feel like it's important for us to acknowledge this time that Paul is feeling alone, but the same way that he's encouraging Timothy, he's reflecting on his life. So I just want to get this breakdown. So these are a couple notes that we could take away from Paul writing to Timothy here. I wrote, sometimes the people with us aren't for us. I'm pretty sure a lot of us have been in an opportunity where we felt like the people that were closest to us weren't really rooting for us like we wish they would, you know? Another thing I wrote was, you have to recognize the Lord is by your side. Verse 17, he says, "But the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength." So Paul was like, even though these people who abandoned me, even though these people that I thought were going to be here aren't here, the Lord is with me, you know? And that takes a certain level of being close to God. That takes a certain level of reading and understanding that God is going to be with you through tough times, because if you're not reading and you're not understanding and you're not praying, you're not worshiping, it's going to be very hard to call out to God in a time where you need to, because you're going to feel so much more isolated and not understand that God has put you here for a reason, you know? So that's why it's important to be rooted. That's why it's important to read. That's why it's important to pray, so that when these situations come, we know what to expect. We know that this is a plan from God. We know that God has set us here for a reason, you know? And the only way you're going to know that is if you're in the Word. That's the only way you're going to know. The last thing I wrote was about his character. I said, even though people may not show up when you need them to, you don't have to be bitter. So you don't have to be angry. You don't have to hate that person. You could remember it. You could acknowledge that you didn't like how they made you feel, you know, based off what they did, but you don't have to hold it against them, right? Because you never know. Like, some people get pulled left and right all the time, every day. And you may have expected more. You may have expected something else from them, but that's not a reason for you to be bitter. And that's a chance for you to forgive them as well. So I thought this was a really good read tonight. I'm probably going to read a lot more in 2 Timothy. I love how Paul speaks to us. It's very simple. It's very precise. It's very to the point. And I think it's great information that we could take daily. So see you guys next video. Bye guys.